spooky season, starlights, and say hello to the stars. Nimmy here once again after a ring around the earth, bringing forth the screams and spooks this Halloween season with our one and only radio host from hell, Alastor. Yes, I know you all have been wondering and eager to see what I've done with this eldritch horror-shaped twink, and boy oh boy do I have some spooky ideas for the big cheese of the radio scene that I can't wait to divulge in today. Which is so exciting, not just for you guys, but for me as well, since not surprising to anybody, Alastor was the first one I decided to redesign when the first episode of Hazbin Hotel came out. I'll level with y'all real quick, because initially I wasn't going to watch Hazbin. It didn't really seem like my kind of thing. I'm more of a action, adventure, fantasy with a romance sort of girl. So when Hazbin came out, I didn't really give it a second thought. That was until I stumbled upon a song, Should Have Stayed Gone. Honestly, that song is entertaining for me. I love the banter, the beat, the music, and it just made me want to watch more and find more songs that I would jam out to. So, because of mainly Alastor, I got into Hazbin, which I love him for, but his character design is... it's not great, and that is purely because of that ugly thing on top of his head. Like, what is this? Why does he have a Ghost in the Shell haircut? He's supposed to be creepy, but I'm basically waiting for him to dramatically freefall from the top of the hotel and fight some flippin' robots. Sorry. As you can see, I don't like his hair. Just like a number of other artists. Anyway, being able to take Alastor and rework him in how I personally like to think he would look like and how he'd act is very refreshing, as well as being able to think of some entertaining and fun ideas I have for him. But before I spill my guts out with the fun little tasty tidbits, let's first pick up a brush and paint the galaxy together. Now, I want to reiterate some things I discussed in my Vaggie redesign, which are just small little points I made previously. Number 1, although I'm reimagining the cast and revising backstories with this AU I have in mind, I will still be having some beats to the show, but more than likely I'll be giving them some fun little twists. For example, Alastor will be keeping his terrifying and mysterious presence in hell, but I want to make his status as an overlord much more impactful. How, you may ask? Well, if you watched my Charlie redesign, I said before that sinners are on the bottom of the totem pole in hell, purely because they hold no power and are used mainly as a power source for demons to keep their souls stabilized. You see, in Hell's Garden, I had this idea that after the fall, demon souls could no longer withstand the power they once held alone, because once they were casted out to the pits of hell, their souls were shattered and began to die ever so slowly. Sort of think of like a fish out of water. But instead of dying outright, their minds and bodies are warped and contorted into unholy monsters that want nothing but to consume the flesh of anything that comes across it and hunt for souls to feast on, trying and failing to fill the never-ending hunger that plagues them day in and day out. As time went by, though, they found that human souls have the ability to stabilize them, keeping them together and prevent them from becoming violent, mindless monsters. But of course, humans wouldn't just hand over their souls willingly, so that's where contracts were created. And thus, because of this, sinners have been used as nothing but walking batteries for demons, holding no other value but that. So, having a sinner like Alastor become an overlord is honestly alarming, as by this time you can guess, every overlord in the past has been a full-fledged demon. Alastor is the first of his kind, and as such has a bigger presence than what is shown in Hazbin. But you must be wondering how he got to this position, as surely a human like him would never be able to sit at the third to highest ranks as the overlords. Well, no one knows how or where he got this massive amount of power. Either way, he used it not only by making a name for himself in the slums of Sinner City, but also by killing more than a few past overlords and taking almost half of the map of Pride. You can tell he's much more powerful than what he seems through his design, because I added some eye buttons to his trench coat and an impressive cane to replace his microphone. You must be wondering why I'm bringing these up. That's because each one is a trophy from his past victories. Each eye belonged to a terrifying overlord that he personally took down. As you can see, he takes pride in his accomplishments, but his favorite of all is his cane and his tie clip. Since it was a gift from a particularly vicious overlord that stood in his way from the beginning, He takes rather good care of them, to be honest, as these mementos have been a massive reminder of the fact he was able to reach the Overlord position after years of knocking so many of them down and clawing his way to the top. Some wonder how exactly a sinner like him was able to achieve being an Overlord, much less killing so many. Rumors say he made a pact with the Prince of Hell to gain such power, but none have come forward to praise such a fierce warrior that would have made the archangels weep. Some say he was simply born this evil. No matter the rumor, he still remained a mystery, even when he disappeared for some odd years, leaving his radio station empty and without a trace. Even with his disappearance, Alastor was still the talk of the town. His power remained feared among the mixed populace, as not a single sinner nor demon dared to intrude upon the seat in which Alastor sat among the Overlord's table. As you can see, not that big of a change. All I really did was throw in some fun little twists to make it more entertaining. But I did in fact drastically change his character design, as you can see by my sketches. The only thing I kept from his original design was the concept of a striped suit and coat. All I really did to exaggerate his form was to heighten the collar of his coat, give him sharper shoulder pads, and elongate the tail. I also took away the rips of his hem, since I found it funny that when Sir Pentious took a piece out of his coat, it was a big deal. When Honey Boo Boo, no, that shit was already ripped to begin with. I'm pretty sure you also noticed I gave him a proper set of glasses instead of keeping that small spectacle he has in his original design, because it always bothered me. I mean, when you look at Alastor head on, your eyes only register his face, rendering his spectacle useless at a first glance, due to it being so off his face, instead of directly under his eye, like any normal glasses should. I also gave him a deep scar reaching from the bottom of his chin to the corner of his nose. How did he get it? Who knows, honestly. Some think he must have sustained it when he was overthrowing overlords left and right, but some swear he had the scar when he first appears. But good luck getting anything out of it. Alastor is rather tight-lipped about his scar. He doesn't even let a peep out of what could have harmed him. Even so, it's clear he doesn't like it, as it must hold some kind of unpleasant memory for the young buck that he doesn't wish to discuss. I also took away the ugly bob he had and gave him a slick-back hairdo with a few kinks. To give the vibe he's refined, sure, but there is still some hint of crazy inside of him. I gave him his hairdo because I honestly love the idea that when he's deep in his homicidal mania, the great tufts of his hair would fall in front of his face, making him look so incredibly insane and unhinged, until eventually he calms down, in which all he has to do is slick his hair back to readjust himself. Also, the eyes. I made his eyes black, with his exclaiming red, because in all honesty, I'm not a fan of the red on red on red in his original character design. He looked more like a walking Starburst candy cane that you see during Christmas than someone who's supposed to be scary. I will say, though, that I did like the red eye makeup he had in his original design, so I kept it, but I moved it down to his waterline to really enhance the emptiness in his gaze, which, no doubt, some lovely ladies would absolutely adore about him. As being this handsome, I did keep his charm, but heighten it to the point where he can be a little flirtatious. And to talk on to that, I also decided to keep the original background of Alastor being born in Louisiana. Reason being, I honestly love the idea of him being from Louisiana, but to heighten it, I decided to give him a hint of a Creole accent, as I really wanted to make it clear where he's from. But also because I love the idea that when he speaks too fast or is really excited, he ends up speaking in French, which no doubt woos a few souls that senselessly end up caught in his web. But don't worry, one could avoid meeting a terrible fate if they know a good dish or two. After all, Alastor would definitely have a healthy appetite if they know how to reach his standards in cuisine, since he knows a thing or two about being in the kitchen. But beware, Alastor can be a bit hard to please, as he still has a very particular palate. And there he is! Oh, so spooky. I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want to run into him down a dark and dingy alleyway behind a bustling speakeasy. You don't want to know if that night he's feeling a bit peckish. I'm sure you're probably wondering as to why exactly this massive figure in hell, who has access to a number of luxurious hotels to stay in, decided to take housing in a wee little place like Hell's Garden. Well, it's a bit of a secret, but he does find the coziness of Hell's Garden rather nostalgic. But it also has to do with the fact that Luciana, aka Charlie, didn't look hard enough on the map that she had on her, and accidentally built her bed and breakfast just a half an inch on top of Alastor's territory, so he thinks he has a little bit of claim. So there's that. Now, just like Luciana and Violetta, I decided to change Alastor's name to keep up with his new design. Although Alastor is a nice name, I felt he needed a bit more pizzazz. Let's give him a name that not only soothes the soul, but strikes a good amount of fear when a resident of hell hears it. So his name will now be Ambrose. Ambrose T. de Blanc. I honestly like it. I would like to talk more about him since he's been on my mind almost all the time, but for now I'll end it here. If you have any headcanons or questions, don't be afraid to ask in the comments, since I have a good amount of ideas for this creepy dork. I hope you like what I did for Alastor, now Ambrose. Up next will be another talent I'm sure you've all been waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, ghouls and goblins, please help me welcome our one and only tantalizing femme fatale with the best legs around, Angel Dust! Woo! Until then, I hope to see you all on the other side of the moon, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe to help my little channel grow even further. Bye!